Hello there, you're watching All 24 News World News Program, and these are tonight's top stories. Algeria hosts African Development Summit as President Tebboune backs continental unity. Shelter Africa and the African Union praise the country's housing and growth efforts. Morocco accelerates settler transfers as activists expose land seizures and MPs blast stolen farmer funds. Also on our news tonight, France is on the brink. Government orders emergency layoffs, while Prime Minister warns that the nation is nearing economic abyss. And later on, another major escalation by the Zionist entity. Gaza camps, Syrian towns, Lebanese villages hit. Dozens are killed in coordinated Israeli strikes. Full reports up next. Welcome back to the program. First up in our news tonight, the 44th General Assembly of Shelter Africa opened Tuesday in Algiers, focusing on affordable housing and sustainable urban development across the continent. Speaking at the event, Algerian Housing Minister Mohamed Tarek Belaribi highlighted President Tebboune's vision of African cooperation as a strategic cornerstone of Algeria's foreign policy. He reaffirmed Algeria's commitment to advancing major continental projects that strengthen African integration.
لقد جعلت الجزائر بقيادة رئيس الجمهورية السيد عبد المجيد تبون.
Algeria, under the leadership of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has made African cooperation a strategic choice and one of the main pillars of its foreign and development policy. In this context, Algeria has committed at various stages to turning this vision into concrete projects that promote African integration and transform our shared space into an open and interconnected one. The most notable example of this is its focus on structural infrastructure through the launch of major strategic projects. To reinforce this direction, Algeria has allocated financial resources to the Algerian Agency for International Cooperation for Solidarity and Development in order to fund development projects in African countries, particularly those that are integrated in nature or that effectively contribute to advancing sustainable development across our continent.
Shelter Africa's General Manager Tierno Habib Han commended Algeria's historic and exemplary commitment to social housing. He hailed the country's newly outlined program as a benchmark for housing policies across Africa.
Permettez-moi à cette occasion de rendre un hommage mérité au
Allow me on this occasion to pay a well-deserved tribute to the government of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria for its historic and exemplary commitment to social housing. The national program implemented in recent years and decades through its scale, consistency, and social impact stands as a continental benchmark in housing policy. This program reflects the ambition to guarantee decent housing for every citizen, while also boosting the local economy, employment, and urban cohesion.
The African Union Deputy Chairperson Salma Malika Haddadi praised Algeria's development initiatives for the AU member states, calling them concrete examples of its foreign policy vision. Speaking to All 24 News, on the sidelines of Shelter Africa's General Assembly, she highlighted Algeria's hosting of key AU institutions as a clear reflection of its strategic commitment to the continent.
Cette contribution considérable du gouvernement algérien.
Algeria's role in this field and on the continental stage no longer needs to be proven. There are a number of initiatives launched by His Excellency the President of the Republic across various sectors, such as integrative infrastructure projects, including the Trans-Saharan Highway, fiber optic networks, and the gas pipeline, as well as other programs aimed at strengthening the capacities of African Union member states in areas like education, higher learning, vocational training, and the exchange of expertise in fields such as agriculture and energy. All of these are clear examples of the continental focus of Algeria's policy. At the African Union Commission, we greatly value this contribution.
The African Union praised Algeria's housing and urban planning achievements on Tuesday, citing its rapid growth in constructing diverse housing units. Speaking at the 44th Shelter Africa Bank Assembly in Algiers, AU Deputy Chairperson Malika Salma Haddadi said Algeria's housing data proves the success of its policies, including the eradication of slums through ambitious programs. She called Algeria's approach a regional benchmark and urged other African nations to learn from its model.
إن هذا المقام المحترم ونحن في الجزائر.
It is a great honor here in Algeria to take this opportunity to express the African Union's appreciation and recognition of Algeria's pioneering experience in the field of housing and urban development. This experience is marked by strong momentum, reflected in significant official figures that demonstrate the effectiveness of the government policies implemented in this vital sector. After years of persistent and dedicated efforts, Algeria has succeeded in eliminating precarious and informal housing. This achievement is the result of ambitious housing programs that reflect the state's high-level strategic vision to promote decent housing and achieve sustainable urban development.
The UN Conference on Trade and Development praised Algeria's strong growth in foreign direct investment, which rose to over $1.43 billion in 2024, an 18% increase from the previous year. In its 2025 World Investment Report, UNCTAD cited Algeria's new investment law, economic diversification efforts, and strategic location as key drivers behind its return to the global investment map. Algerian Energy Minister Mohamed Arqab met with a senior ExxonMobil delegation to discuss finalizing hydrocarbon contracts, a key step for the U.S. firm's entry into Algeria's market. The talks build on technical consultations between ExxonMobil, Sonatrach, and Algeria's hydrocarbon agency. Arqab reaffirmed Algeria's pledge to foster investment-friendly policies and partnerships focused on knowledge sharing and tech transfer. Moving on to Morocco now. The Makhzen regime has welcomed tens of thousands of Zionists settling in Morocco amid a rising wave of reverse migration from the occupying entity. This trend has accelerated as a consequence of the ongoing war of extermination in Gaza Strip, with growing numbers choosing Morocco as a destination.
Since 2018, it has not been significantly integrated into the application system. However, it was noted that there has been interaction, particularly in relation to visits, gender, or even their settlement in Morocco to carry out various activities. These activities vary depending on the occasion. The movement began with the outbreak of Al-Aqsa flood operation.
For his part, Aziz Hannawi, head of the Anti-Normalization Observatory, accused authorities of intensifying property seizures and forced displacement to accommodate Zionist settlers. He said the plan is being coordinated with the Zionist entity.
An Israeli shows up with a Moroccan national identity and says, "This is my house, this is my farm, and this is my village." He claims land that belongs to the state, as he's in court as a Moroccan citizen, using a Moroccan ID, not an Israeli one. This is a serious matter. In fact, for nearly 10 years, Netanyahu has been pursuing a program that demands compensation from Arab countries for so-called Jewish refugees. The Israeli government's I Am Refugee program aims to claim billions of dollars on behalf of Jews of Arab, Eastern, and other Muslim country origins, all to benefit Zionist settlers.
Moroccan Member of Parliament Hid Benania Rattle sharply criticized Prime Minister Aziz Akhnouch's government for favoring lobbies and big investors at the expense of small farmers. Speaking in Parliament, the Justice and Development Party member accused the government of directing public support toward large-scale agriculture. She cited a report by the Economic, Social and Environmental Council that condemned the management of two major agricultural programs.
The Economic, Social and Environmental Council's report condemned the government's management of the Green Morocco program, both in words and numbers. The same applies to the Green Generation for its audience, especially regarding support related to small farmers, cooperate within the framework of solidarity farming. It is as if 70% of the utilization and 30% of the Economic, Social and Environmental Council are involved. Similarly, the Green Morocco program, which operates within the framework of solidarity farming, is associated with 30% of Economic, Social and Environmental Council.
Spain's People Party reaffirmed its support for the Sahara people's right to self-determination and independence. The party spokesperson criticized the Moroccan Istiqlal Party's reaction to the Polisario Front's participation in the recent People's Party's event. He stressed that the party's stance on Western Sahara is firm and declared, unlike what he called the Sanchez's government's secret decisions. Switching focus to another news story, French Prime Minister François Bayrou admitted Tuesday that France is facing a political crisis unprecedented in 60 years, citing the lack of a parliamentary majority. Speaking after unveiling the draft budget, he pointed to the growing political divisions, rising violence, and hate speech as major challenges the government is struggling to address.
With each second that passes, French debt increased by 5,000 euros. 5,000 euros of additional debt per second. This is where we are at. And this is why I believe that, as we have been saying since this government took office, we now have the duty to assume our responsibility. I think this is the last stop before the cliff. And the crashing down because of that, we should call it by its name. It's a moral danger for country.
French Prime Minister François Bayrou unveiled plans to cut civil service jobs in 2025 to tackle the widening budget deficit, warning of the deepening curse of debt. Speaking at a press conference, he revealed that France's debt is growing by 5,000 euros every second. Bayrou also announced the 2026 spending freeze, excluding defense and debt payments.
The state will be the first to be an example and stabilize its spending or even reduce it. The state will put in place as a first rule to not spend not even a euro more in 2026 than in 2025, with the exception of increase in debt payments and additional spending for the military budget.
French Prime Minister François Bayrou admitted France's addiction to public spending and announced the pension freeze for 2026, keeping payouts at 2025 levels. He described the move as part of the last stop to prevent France from being crushed by its growing debt.
The state will be the first to adjust to the situation by freezing or even reducing its spending. A fundamental rule will be applied: not a single additional euro will be spent in 2026 compared to 2025, except for increases in debt repayments and additional military budget expenditures. Administrations and operators will have to reconsider their resources by anticipating a rule we're establishing now for the coming years. 1 out of every 3 retiring public servants will not be replaced.
And in the Gaza file tonight, at least 38 Palestinians, including many children, were killed and dozens injured on Tuesday as Zionist forces bombed homes and tents sheltering displaced families in Gaza City. Civil defense teams said 14 members of one family remain under the rubble in Tufah after medics were blocked from reaching them. In Khan Younis, 20 were killed in strikes on displacement tents. Later, 9 more, including children, were killed in Bani Suhaila. Nasser Hospital also received 11 bodies and several critically injured from Al-Mawasi. In Rafah, 3 Palestinians, 2 women and a man, were killed in a direct attack on an aid center run by a Zionist American group. Hunger is claiming the lives of the youngest and most vulnerable in Gaza Strip. At Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis, children suffering from severe malnutrition are being treated under worsening conditions as medical teams struggle to save them. Zafar Jani reports now.
In the dimly lit pediatric ward of Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza, children victims of the Zionist war are suffering from hunger while fighting for their lives. 5-month-old Zainab is one of them. Her body tells the story her mother can no longer hold in.
There is no milk that works for her. We tried many kinds. Once the milk is finished, we need the same one again. But where do we get it? The crossings are closed. The whole world is closed in our faces. Do we wait until the baby dies?
In a bed not far from hers, just days ago, 3 other children, 2 girls and a boy, lost their fight for life. Zainab's mother watched it happen.
3 cases died before her, in the same beds next to me. And some of them were lucky enough to travel abroad. I hope the girl, my daughter, travels too.
Doctors here are overwhelmed. Malnutrition is not just rising, it's arriving faster than they can respond.
Children come to us emaciated and sick. In the emergency room, we see at least 6 to 10 cases every day that require admission to the nutrition department.
Since the Zionist entity tightened its siege on Gaza in March, UN health officials say malnutrition is surging. According to UNRWA, over 240,000 children under 5 have been screened since January, many now suffering from acute hunger, previously rare in the Strip.
Malnutrition rates are increasing in Gaza, especially since the siege was tightened more than 4 months ago on the 2nd of March. So we've seen in our clinics an increase in malnutrition among children. Currently, 1 in 10 children screened in those clinics and their facilities is malnourished.
For Zainab and for hundreds of children like her, time is running out. Food is now a matter of access, and survival depends on whether the world chooses to open a door or keep it shut.
Still with the Middle East developments, on Tuesday, Zionist warplanes renewed their raids on Syria's Suwaida governorate, even as the army declared a ceasefire in the area. Syrian state media confirmed the strikes, but gave no details on damage or casualties. The Syrian Foreign Ministry, for its part, condemned the treacherous aggression which killed multiple security personnel and civilians in combined airstrikes and drone attacks. Damascus vowed to exercise its right to self-defense under international law, holding the Zionist occupation fully responsible for the escalation. In Lebanon, 12 people, including 7 members of a Syrian family, were killed and 8 others wounded in Zionist airstrikes in Lebanon's eastern Bekaa region, Lebanese media reported on Tuesday. The attacks targeted several areas in the Bekaa Valley and Baalbek Ermel governorate, coinciding with the machine gun fire near Shab'a along the border with occupied Palestine and Syria. The strikes mark a serious escalation and a fresh breach of the ceasefire in place since late November. Moving on to the war in Ukraine now. The Kremlin said on Tuesday it needs time to respond to the U.S. President Donald Trump's ultimatum demanding an end to the war in Ukraine or face more sanctions. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov stressed that Moscow remains open to negotiations with Kyiv despite Trump's remarks.
The US president's remarks are quite serious. Some parts of what he said seem to be aimed directly at President Putin. Of course, we need time to fully analyze everything that was said in Washington. When and if President Putin decides it's necessary, he will certainly respond.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Kyiv views decisions from Washington and NATO as encouragement to continue the war, not to pursue peace.
It looks like the decisions made in Washington, in NATO countries, and directly in Brussels are being read by the Ukrainian side not as steps toward peace, but as green light to keep the war going. Let me stress once again, we've said repeatedly and at the highest levels that we're waiting for Ukraine to propose a date for a third round of direct Russian-Ukrainian talks. we're ready. But so far, we haven't received any proposal from Kiev.
Another global news story. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang announced Tuesday that the U.S. has approved export licenses for the company's H200 AI chips to China. Huang called the decision very positive, noting shipments will begin soon. The move comes after earlier warnings that the ban could cost NVIDIA up to $15 billion.
I'm announcing that the U.S. government has approved for us filing licenses to start shipping H20s. Okay. And so we will start to sell H20s to the Chinese market. And I'm looking forward to shipping H20s very soon. And so I'm very happy with that very, very good news. The second news is that we're also announcing a new GPU called RTX Pro. And RTX Pro is very important because it's designed for computer graphics in digital twins and AI.
For its part, China rejected the use of technology as a political weapon, criticizing efforts by some countries to deliberately restrict and target it. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian warned that such policies threaten global supply chains and harm all parties involved.
As a general rule, we refrain from making specific comments on the conduct of individual companies. I would like to point out that China opposes the politicization, exploitation, and weaponization of technology and trade issues, as well as the malicious blockade and suppression directed against China. This position has been consistent and clear. Such practices disrupt the stability of global production and supply chains and are not in the interest of any concerned party.
Let's catch up on more news stories making headlines around the world in the News in Brief with Salman Asib.
Nigeria's former president Muhammadu Buhari was buried on Tuesday in the backyard of his home in Katsina State. Buhari, who led the country from 2015 to 2023, died on Sunday in a London hospital. He received a military parade and a 20-gun salute before his coffin, draped in Nigeria's flag, was taken to Dora. President Bola Tinubu and officials attended the funeral. Dozens protested illegal migration in Torre Pacheco after 4 nights of clashes between North African migrants and far-right groups. The unrest followed an assault on a local man with 3 suspects detained. Authorities deployed over 120 officers as tensions rose and community leaders called for calm. Torrential rains hit Fuji City, Shizuoka Prefecture, with 150 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours on Tuesday, following Typhoon Nari's landfall in Hokkaido. The typhoon has since weakened into a low-pressure system, making the first tropical storm to hit Hokkaido since 2016. Two people were killed in Plainfield, New Jersey, after their car was swept away by floodwaters during severe storms that hit the New York City area from Monday night into Tuesday. The storms caused widespread flooding, disrupting airports, highways, and subways. Governor Phil Murphy declared a state of emergency.
Yemeni farmers and herders, long burdened by drought, are facing a severe crisis after unusually low rainfall from late 2024 through mid-2025. The sharp drop in agricultural and livestock production has raised alarm, with experts warning of a looming disaster if conditions persist. The details with Sofian Kanturi.
In the mountainous villages surrounding Sana'a, farmers and herders are in distress. A severe lack of rainfall this year has parched farmland, forcing many to abandon their crops and drastically reduce their herds.
Last year, the rains were plentiful, but this year they've been weak, and it's affected both our farming and livestock.
Shamsuddin A young herder from the region is now forced to move his flock to nearby valleys in search of pasture. But across the area, grazing land is vanishing and livestock numbers are visibly dwindling.
We move from mountain to mountain. There are no pastures like before because of the lack of rain. I had 70 sheep, now only 50. The lambs are dying of hunger and drought.
The worsening drought, intensified by climate change, is now threatening food security in Yemen. This year, around 85% of farmland went uncultivated. If it doesn't rain this season, Yemen could face a major catastrophe. The prolonged drought from late 2024 into early 2025 has slashed sowing and cereal yields. Water stress is putting enormous pressure on agricultural livelihood, causing a sharp decline in both plant and animal production.
That's the end of our news program for tonight. Thank you for tuning in and good night.